I'm just gonna start off gently and say, hey everybody, how you doing? I'm Steve Taylor. I am the creator and host of MSP Webinars. Today I'm joined by Alper. He is the owner of CyberGuard360, and you guys also have another company or product. I believe it's PII Guard 360.
Right. So CyberGuard360 is the company. We are a channel-only company,
Okay.
and we provide SaaS-based, subscription-based platforms and done-for-you services. So our two subscription-based platforms are CyberGlass, which is a SIM 2.0 platform, and the other is PII Guard 360, and that is a breach prevention and security awareness and policy and procedures and risk assessment. It is basically the client-facing side of cybersecurity, where the SIM is the MSP-facing side of cybersecurity. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you and I spoke before, and if I recall correctly, so you're providing the tools. You're giving us everything we need to stand up our own SOC, our own MSSP type of service, but you're not actually providing the service. You don't have your own SOC. You don't have guys monitoring this stuff. You're just basically getting us a bundle of software for us to figure out how to use and deploy.
So mostly yes. So there's a couple of things that are so not for you to figure out how to use, but for us to teach you how to use. Also,
Okay.
it's not a bunch of bundled software. It's fully integrated. So if
Okay.
you think about our two platforms, the applications that we integrate with are integrated into and therefore are behind the scenes, if you would. So think for a moment about our advanced endpoint protection, next gen endpoint protection. We've partnered with Sophos to provide Sophos Advanced Endpoint with Intercept X. So when you get a subscription to CyberGlass, our SIM 2.0 platform, you also get licenses and installers for the Sophos endpoint protection, but that all sits under the hood, if you would. So it will get installed, and then it reports directly into CyberGlass.
Okay. So
That all sits under the hood, if you would. So it will get installed, and then it reports directly into CyberGlass. That sounds like me.
okay. Now I'm hearing us. Okay, that was weird. All right, so
Right, it was an echo I heard.
that was weird. I'm sorry. So
Technology today, right?
it's embarrassing. I can't believe I did that to us.
Don't
All
worry
right,
about it.
so you keep saying SIM 2.0, but I don't know if is that a real thing? Like, there's Web 2.0, like all the web designers are all, oh, we're doing Web 2.0, and then they're, like, and I just feel like, are you just making up buzzwords to sound cool, Al? Like,
So, to be fair, the 2.0 is our own branding, if you would. But
okay,
so let me tell you why we call it SIM 2.0. Everybody knows what a SIM is. Anybody who speaks about security knows what a SIM is. SIM is Security Information and Event Management, SIEM, SIM. And traditional platforms, traditional SIM platforms, Event Tracker, Rapid7, Alien Vault, and many more. These types of platforms they do a very, very good job at monitoring the attack surface and the threat landscape and alerting people when there is a problem. So think about it as everybody has probably seen this commercial, so I'll use the commercial analogy. There's a commercial that's on TV, which is actually pretty darn funny, where there is a bank robbery going on. And there is a security guard standing there and a woman laying on the floor, and she turns to the security guard and she says, "Aren't you going to do something?" And he looks at her and says, "Well, I'm a security monitor, and I just alert you when you're being robbed. And by the way, you're being robbed." That's a SIM.
Well,
Okay?
that's unfortunate.
That is. And that's what SIMs were built from the ground up to do, and they do a very good job at it. That's why the M in SIM is monitor. It's exactly what they do. An evolutionary step in SIM is something called SOAR, SOAR. Probably less people have heard of the acronym SOAR. And SOAR stands for Security Orchestration, Automation, and Response. And SOAR is an evolutionary step in a SIM whereby it imparts a degree of automation into the platform, so when normative alerts are raised, it will do something to remediate them, even if that something is only recommending next steps to the engineer. Sometimes remediation is actually actual remediation. Make sense?
Yep, sounds good.
We call ours SIM 2.0 because we are really the next revolution in SIM. Where a traditional SIM is...
Are you the next revolution or evolution?
Revolution.
Okay.
And that's why we're 2.0. And we're revolutionary because where a SIM is a see something, say something platform. So if you, again, using that security monitor, the bank's being robbed, they don't do anything. Effectively, an alerting system is nothing but a see something, say something platform. Hey, you have a problem. By the way, you have a problem. Right? And a SOAR has a degree of automation, but at large, it's really just a see something, say something platform with a little automation. Our platform was built from the ground up to be an empowerment tool, not just an alerting system. So in Cyberglass, you have the ability to remediate. You have the ability to automate remediations. Think of it as a mashup, if you would, of an RMM and a SIM, but focus solely and strictly on security. So where an RMM does things like patching and other things, that's not the purview of a SIM at all, and it's not the purview of a SOC, frankly. That's what RMM should be doing. What SIMs do, what SIM 2.0 does is it identifies a problem and it performs prescriptive remediation. It also empowers the engineer to perform it. So let me give you an example. A client, our system throws off an alert. A SIM, we'll just use any SIM for a moment, throws off an alert, unusual login activity, invalid number of bad login attempts. That presents a potential brute force attack on an endpoint or on some endpoint, whether it's a server, workstation, firewall, doesn't matter. You're getting unusual login activity. That alert gets thrown off. In a SIM, the engineer would say, okay, I've been alerted. I'm leaving here. I jump into the environment, whether the environment is your firewall SIM, your endpoint security SIM, your RMM tool, doesn't matter. Goes and does an investigation to do something about it and then remediates that. Maybe they've identified it as a bad actor, so they have rebooted the endpoint and disabled the login account that they were attempting to brute force, which would be the normal behavior of a security engineer if they identified a brute force in motion. In CyberGlass, go ahead.
Sorry. Zach wants to know how this is different than MDR. And for those of you watching that don't know, MDR is Managed Detection and Response. And basically the concept behind that is the ability to detect and respond, and the response being the ability to remediate. That's what you're talking about.
So that's an awesome question. And if I was only talking about endpoint security, I would say they're the same.
Okay.
The problem is I'm talking about the entire attack surface. So if you think of the attack surface as firewalls, switches, routers, layer 2 and 3 devices, web DNS protection, everything that makes up the attack surface, because the attack surface Well, actually, there are 3 layers to the attack surface, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when I talk about PII Guard. But the technological layer of the attack surface, which is what the MSPs predominantly speak to. In fact, it's mainly what they think about, and which is why they generally sell products instead of solutions. But that the MDR is specifically focused on the endpoint, the server and workstation, and therefore, if you're talking about MDR, you're 100% correct. There's very little difference between what I'm talking about and what the MDR that Sophos is doing, the MDR that some of the other products are doing as well. But I'm talking about that type of functionality across the entire attack surface. So imagine for a moment your firewall throws off this bad login attempt, and Cyberglass automates a policy update on the firewall that automatically drops that packet, turns that off, and kills that user. MDR doesn't exist on a firewall.
Okay. So I had a really good question and I lost it. So, okay. You said earlier, built from the ground up. Now, I'm going to take a jab at you, Al, because a lot of people love that phrase, built from the ground. We built this from the ground up. I know guys that are using, like a white label voice over IP phone system solution, and they tell everyone we built it from the ground up, and really it was built from the ground up, sure, by somebody else. So I always get a chuckle when I hear a vendor come on here and say we built it from the ground, because everyone says that, man. I could sit next to a client and say I built my managed services company from the ground up. I'm not wrong, but what does that really mean? Because I guess where I'm going is, okay, you built CyberGuard360 from the ground up, but a lot of people are going to see. You've got a lot of products that you're using. Can we list those all out? I know you're using Sophos Intercept X. I think Advanced EDR.
Yes. So let me respond to the build from the ground up. I don't take that as a jab. I respect the heck out of it, and you're right. It is an unfortunate cliche these days.
Yes.
Because everybody uses that sort of to boost their ego. Look at everything I've just done. Mm-hmm. So I respect the jab, because actually it's a much needed jab. Fortunately, what I'm saying is actually true.
Sure.
We literally built our own SIM. And okay. I didn't take a white labeled SIM, an open source SIM, and recast it. We don't use the technologies of Wireshark and other applications. Our SIM is our own platform, built from the ground up. We've also went out to our vendor partners, and I'll list those in a moment. We said, listen, because we're building a platform that we want to be responsive, because we're building a platform that we want to ensure that from within the platform we are providing the facility for remediation and the automation technologies there too. Meaning that not only do we want to empower the engineers with the ability to get to the endpoint and do remediation on their own, but we want to use their intelligence to crowdsource. I'm sure you've heard that term before. Mm-hmm. To crowdsource automation, because our machine learning engine, which we also built from the ground up, our machine learning engine is monitoring the behaviors of the engineers that use our platform to build automation that then becomes that MDR component down the road. And so let me just continue with that thought, because it's an important aspect of the platform that people don't appreciate until they hear it. And this is what makes us SIM 2.0 more than anything else. It's what we are able to do on platform, and our machine learning engine, and what that crowdsourcing facility lets us do makes us 2.0 well ahead of our competitors. So on Cyberglass platform, an engineer is able to jump on an endpoint at console, behind the console to a command prompt, a PowerShell, look at servers, look at services, look at processes, many things they can do on their RMM tool today. So I don't mean to imply that they can't do that today. The difference between us and what they can do today, what they do in an RMM, they do RMM level work that unless an alert gets thrown off over here in their SIM, they don't know what to look for in their RMM. I'm in a SIM, and the SIM says, hey, a bad login attempt. Now the engineer wants to get to the console. They click, and they're on console. The engineer wants to look at what services are running. Click, and they're looking at the services running on that endpoint. By looking at the services, they can kill the services, they can restart the services, they can do the same thing with processes, they can get to a command prompt or a PowerShell prompt if they want. They can do anything with the endpoint they want, just like they could in an RMM, but they've never had to leave the SIM to do it. And so the speed to remediation goes down by an enormous factor if you consider the fact that an alert rose up, they right mouse clicked and clicked to jump on the endpoint. If you did that in Event Tracker today, your alert would come up, you'd leave the Event Tracker, you'd go to your RMM, you'd search for the organization, search for the endpoint, open up a console session. All of that time that just took, the engineer in CyberGlass has already remediated and they moved on to the next problem. So that's the first thing. The second thing that we're doing, so that facility for active remediation is built into CyberGlass that we built. We use the connective tissue of a vendor to help provide the facility, but we are the ones that enable that with our vendor. And then what's happening is while the engineer is on platform, CyberGlass is recording everything the engineer is doing, recording the behavior of the engineer. And that gets dumped into a massive database farm. And then our machine learning engine is saying, okay, so every time this alert pops up, engineers are doing these 10 things. And let's say there's 1,000 engineers, and 800 of them do the same 10 things every single time that one particular alert pops up. At some point, CyberGlass AI is what we call our machine learning engine, CyberGlass Artificial Intelligence. It has an aha moment, and it says, aha, when an alert like this happens, I should be doing this. And it builds automation on the fly. And the next time the alert pops up, when the engineer sees the alert and right mouse clicks, it pops up and says, hey, we noticed that when this happens, engineers do this, and this. Would you like me to do that for you? Yes or no? Would you like me to do that from now on and send you a report of all our automations? Yes or no? And whatever the engineer chooses, CyberGlass AI takes over. So if they said yes, every time that alert pops up, CyberGlass AI remediates it, even before it shows up on the SIM, because it has to hit the database before it shows up on the SIM. And the minute it hits the database, CyberGlass AI says, I know what to do with you, and it gets rid of it. So think about the power of that crowdsourced automation. Think about how quick. So imagine that CyberGlass AI sees an alert that says bad login attempt. And because the engineer said, yeah, automate those 10 steps of jumping on the endpoint, killing the user, jumping to the Active Directory, disabling the user and changing the password, going back to the endpoint, reboot the endpoint. CyberGlass AI did that even before the engineer saw it. And so CyberGlass AI becomes CyberGlass vis-a-vis CyberGlass AI, it becomes an extension of your SOC, an extension of your engineering team. And it does so at the speed of E, because it's happening even before your engineers would see it. And now your opportunity to scale goes up exponentially. And that's why we're SIM 2.0.
So that's pretty awesome sounding. All right, so I feel like we skipped a few steps though. There are some tools that you're using today, and they are integrated into your platform.
That is correct.
What are those tools?
Okay, so I'm just going to go grab my own spread while we do that, but I can tell you as we go through that because I have them. So we are integrated with that. We leverage Sophos for right now for advanced endpoint protection. That includes Intercept X. That's what does our endpoint protection and what we communicate with. So imagine right mouse click and quarantine a file, if you would. Go ahead.
Utilizing Intercept X Advanced with EDR.
So that's EDR is not included in the subscription, but you can add it to the subscription for an extra whatever couple of dollars. So you say yes, and we turn the switch on. So we are working. We integrate with a product called Traverse for network level monitoring. Think of Logic Monitor
Right?
I believe Kaseya bought them. Yes. So we integrate with Traverse. We are currently using DLP. We're using Sophos' DLP, but we're in talks with another vendor, which we're under NDA. I can't discuss who they are, but we're adding DLP of standalone DLP to that. Our DNS integration is with 1-in-1. Our web filtering is with Zscaler. Our dark web monitoring is our own that we built, and that's a part of PII Guard, which I'll talk about in a moment. And PII Guard addresses the other couple of layers. So that's what we're integrating with today. And those all come with a CyberGlass subscription. Now, you don't have access to their UI. So when I say they come with the subscription, you get the NLM component so that we can monitor layer 2 and 3 devices and network traffic for malicious behavior, but you don't have access to the Traverse portal to do other things you may want to do. So, so if you think,
so that's the gotcha with this, and not that this is like a, no, I'm not interested. You're I'm handcuffed here. Some people may feel that way, but it sounds like what you're doing is you're trying to make this simpler for MSPs to say, security is getting trickier and trickier. I know I need to do something. I don't understand what all of this stuff does, and they can become a partner of CyberGlass, and they can say, all right, I want to get the CyberGlass AI. I want to get the dark web monitoring with the PII Guard. I want the whole deal. I want it for all my clients. And while we, the MSP, still need to, I guess is there something you can show us? Like, is there a portal we get with CyberGlass? I really want to see, because I'm such a visual person, like.
Not a problem. Hold on one second. Let me just jump into a quick portal for you, a demo portal. I'll see if I can't share a screen really quick. I'll just show you what it looks like at the risk of.
I really appreciate that.
No worries. This is one of our tests. So I'll share this. Let me just share this particular. Let me just break this out on its own 1 second. Okay. So let me share. Let me stop that. And I'll also I'll show you this first. All right. So let's take a look at. Let's look at this.
So I find it really interesting, the concept, and you're looking to sell to the everyday MSP. You're not looking to sell to the security wizard.
Honestly, we have MSSPs that are clients of ours, because the tool sets that we've incorporated are enterprise grade, and
sure. and not that you wouldn't take on the security wizard as the client, but chances are they've already got their own infrastructure stood up, so they're probably just less likely to onboard with you. Not that what you've got is a bad thing. I didn't want to imply that. I'm just saying and for example, maybe they've already got Traverse and they want access to that whole stinking dashboard. That kind of thing.
Right. Uh, you're right in the sense that if they're already a security wizard, they've already refined the processes around their tool set.
Right.
The problem is that they suffer, and I don't mean this in a negative sense about them specifically, but this is just true about the way platforms work necessarily when you put together a solution set of products, because they suffer from what I call time breakage. In order to successfully navigate a security offering, so any MSP or any MSSP or IT service provider that wants to stand up a security practice, they need about a dozen arrows in their quiver. And the arrows are the tools that they use, and the quiver is their solution that they're bringing to market. Right? So when you stand up a security practice in your MSP, that security practice, you're going to give it a name, and you're going to bundle a bunch of products together that you're going to offer under this name called XYZ MSP Security. Whatever it is, it doesn't particularly matter. And so necessarily the tool set that you've bundled, each and every one of them have their own interfaces or their own SIM, for lack of a better term. And so what a security hawk, a security junkie, someone who's been doing this a long time, they're going to have, let's say, Auvik for network monitoring. They'll use Sophos or some other next-gen product for endpoint security. They use Zscaler or Siren for web DNS. They'll use, and I can go down the list, right? Every single one of those has their own platform. And every single one of those requires that they be monitored and correlated, because even a SIM like Rapid7 or a SIM like Event Tracker, these see something, say something SIMs, they can't monitor all those things right now. And so if you're a security junkie, you're still going to be beholden to a half a dozen or more platforms that you have to monitor regularly, correlate between them, and then do something about it. CyberGlass is designed to bring all of that into one platform. And so if what they're interested in is getting rid of the noise, getting rid of what I call time breakage, because when you jump from platform to platform to platform to platform, you're breaking an engineer's time up into the time they spend here, then the time they spend here, and then the time they spend here, and then the time they spend figuring out how they all correlate. Aha, that's the problem. That's time breakage. You should be able to do that in one platform. I'm pointing here because that's where CyberGlass is right now and what I'm sharing with you. You should be able to, in one platform, see it all and be able to do something from within it. So the beauty of this platform, I'll just use this as an example, I can right mouse click right now and jump on this computer. I can right mouse click right now and jump to a PowerShell prompt. You can't do that in any other SIM. And this is what CyberGlass looks like. These three dots, they're called ellipses, is where you would see the underlying data that makes up the alerts that are being thrown off. The CRI score. This is an interesting dashlet. This is our own patent pending. It's a FICO score for the cyber health of the enterprise.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, so that's we have a patent pending on that right now.
That's an incredible score. They can buy any house they want right now.
So this is what CyberGlass looks like. It looks like every other SIM. Maybe it looks different. It shows other information or more information. It's more colorful or less colorful. And you can see that it shows the salient information, the relevant information necessary to that security engineers need to be aware of. And then again, the ability for it to do prescriptive remediation, the ability to empower the engineer with the tools to jump onto an endpoint, with the tools to remediate without having to leave here and go over to their RMM tool is what makes us SIM 2.0. The machine learning engine and the crowdsourcing of automation is what makes us SIM 2.0. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay. So,
Awesome.
so there's a company out there. Are you familiar with? And I don't actually know how to pronounce it, but I want to call it Demisto, that Palo Alto Networks company that they do SOAR, or Demisto.
The name is not familiar. That doesn't mean I haven't seen them. So don't an old man's memory. How's that?
No, it's okay. I just put a link in the chat just in case. Maybe that'll jog your memory or something. So I know guys that they've got a traditional SIM that's gathering logs, and they've taken time to tune the sysmon data and correlation and all that, and then they're using a tool like this to do SOAR. So what you're saying is, in theory, you're able to do all of the stop it, Siri. I know, I get it. In theory, it's so similar. I say it a lot. So in theory, shut up, Siri. You are doing all of the things that I just mentioned that some of these other companies are doing. You're just doing it in a more integrated way.
And in a more integrated, it's also a different way though, because so what happens with companies, and it's Demisto, that is into demystify, and yes, I've seen this before. So thanks.
So I was just pronouncing it incredibly wrong.
Well, it was the French in you. I think you wanted to say it like it was a French company. So what? So where we're different, and in more ways than I can speak to here, is we're similar in that we are doing automations to prescriptive remote automations predicated on the alerts and the other things in the database, much like they are. Where we're different, and again, I'm going to come back to what I said earlier about our ability to crowdsource, because we've empowered the engineer to do something, and because we're able to record, I don't mean record like you're doing with this video, but record the keystrokes and the other things that the engineer is doing to mitigate and remediate, we're able to crowdsource automation. And this is where we're, in fact, wildly different from companies like Demisto, right? So, or even FireEye. FireEye's got a great SOAR platform, by the way. The problem has to do with the inherent development cycle of SOAR. So the automation and orchestration and response from SOAR platforms are built by really, really, really smart guys in what I call green rooms. Green rooms are the closets where these guys sit and say, okay, when this comes up, what should we do to fix it? And they build the automation. Well, that's great. But the truth of the matter is, like every human being on planet Earth, they're only as good as that to what they've been exposed to. And so if they don't know what really the best technique is, because the only techniques they know are the ones they've done and the ones they've seen their friends do, how do they really know that's the best response? And that's why crowdsourcing is so important. That's why the empowerment of the engineer is so critical a component to what Cyberglass is built from the ground up to do. Because we don't think any engineer is the smartest guy in the room. We think all the engineers together know what the hell they're talking about. Think about the stock market. The stock market is the greatest valuation mechanism in the world because it crowdsources a stock price.
And the scariest thing is if you're going to say that you're similar to the stock market, that's scary, man. because that thing's crashed a few times. I'm sure you've seen, but
I've seen.
so
But
so
point
that's
being is
cool.
that that you may know a hell of a lot more than me. You probably do, frankly. But the way you remediate something, maybe you're doing it faster than me. Maybe you're doing a step that's actually more protective in the long run than me. What I'm saying is that by being able to crowdsource that automation, you're going to find the best way to do it. And then by doing so, now also because we do that with machine learning, we're able to build automation at lightning speeds. Because if 1,000 engineers are doing 100 remediations a day, God forbid your networks are being attacked at that level for a second, but let's leave that alone for a moment, and enough of them are doing it, we're building hundreds of automations a day. And there's no green room that can produce that kind of automation.
So how are your crowdsourced TTPs and whatever, how are they different from industry contributions to MITRE ATT&CK?
So they're not, but it's at the speed with which those contributions can be morphed into an automation or a response. So
they're crowdsourcing and you're crowdsourcing, but what you're saying is MITRE ATT&CK isn't actually turning that into a remediation of some sort, whereas you
certainly not at the speed that we do.
Okay. Now you're like talking a big game, because MITRE, they're huge. They work across the government, man. Why? So how can you say, like, what proof do you have?
What proof do I have? Our partners that use the platform absolutely rave about it. I mean, that to me is the only proof I really need. If I've got partners that come on board and they're this thing is the bomb. I mean, I've got one of our partners. He's completely retooled his company around pushing the security solution that we deliver through Cyberglass, and he is selling like wildfire.
So I'm not saying that your partners don't love it. I'm saying you're familiar with MITRE, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm barely familiar with MITRE. I've told you in the past, you are way smarter at security than I am, Al. So I'm asking questions that are unfortunately a little bit above me. However, it's important that we as MSPs can all agree on how we feel about you, your company, and what you're providing. Okay, so all right, so MITRE, they are basically crowdsourcing as well, because it's industry contribution into MITRE ATT&CK, right? So you're saying that you're doing it faster. I guess what I'm saying is, regardless of how awesome your customers say you are, what proof do you have that you are turning your crowdsourced information into a remediation faster than MITRE? You understand what I'm saying?
I do. Part of the problem with answering that, it's difficult to convey without either exposing some intellectual property by way of literally showing it to you or explaining it to you, because obviously we can't do that and expose the intellectual property. But to the extent that which I've already told you, how it works, because we are real time. I guess this is the only way I can really explain it to you without deconstructing the platform.
Sure. Okay.
We are crowdsourcing in real time. This is like you're live streaming today. We're literally crowdsourcing in real time. As it's happening, it's feeding the database, and as it's feeding the database, the machine learning engine is ingesting it, evaluating it, and doing something with it.
Okay, so you're ingesting these TTPs, techniques, tactics, processes, and in real time, you have. I'm just going to try and simplify this. You've built Skynet, and it's looking at
That's perfect.
all of the techniques, tactics, processes that you're seeing, right? It's seeing them all, and it's saying, okay, this one worked, so I'll remember that. This one didn't. I'll either not remember that, or I should remember that this didn't work, or whatever. Am I on the right path so far? So I'm again simplifying.
The answer is yes, kind of. And again, I'm not trying to be vague or obtuse about it. The reason why the answer is kind of because it doesn't do it on an individualized basis. It looks at the aggregate of the crowdsourced data. So if there were 1,000 instances of that alert, and 800 of those, this is the process that happened, the TTP that was executed, then it does something with it. It's waiting for that moment when the aha goes off. And the aha is at scale, right? Because if you're the only one that ever does it, I'm not going to automate that. Because just using some of the names in the chat session, if any one of these people in the chat session were to do it a different way, automating yours doesn't make sense. And if there were 1,000 guys in the chat session doing it the same way, and you're doing it the different way, I'd be automating them, not you. And so it's the intersection of the number of alerts that come up with the number of similar or identical remediations that transpire, and that intersection at scale automates.
Okay, so
does that make sense? And it's happening in real time. That's really we don't crowdsource, through feeds. We crowdsource through live engineer behavior.
Okay, so let me back up. I'm gonna, again, very simplified version, but I want to kind of walk through what it's like using your solution from what I understand. So my understanding is we have to sign up, become a partner, and we basically just give you our checkbook and say have a great day. We get our credentials, we sign in, we set up a client, which I saw in your I guess that was CyberGlass, the SIM. In there, we set up the client, and then we start deploying the software to the client. Now, is there, I'll call it an agent that is there a CyberGlass agent that we're installing?
There is.
And then that is also then deploying the Sophos, the Traverse, the DLP, DNS, Zscaler, all of that stuff. It's handling all of that for us.
That is good. We give you a command line to run with tokenization, because that's right now the way Sophos works. Their next iteration, their P1 iteration of their dev cycle, we're going to be able to get rid of that. You'll be able to deploy right from within CyberGlass, but right now that's not the case, and that's a limitation of Sophos, not a limitation of CyberGlass. But yes, what you just said. The only additional thing I'll make note of is we will also give you an ISO of what we call our ACE, ACE. Which is it stands for Advanced Cyber Event, and that is an ISO of our nodeless NLM, our nodeless Traverse.
Okay. And
that allows you then you can either stand it up in a VM, or you can actually buy an ACE appliance from us, where we actually put the ISO onto a physical NUC, and then you just plug that into the network. And then we configure it all on the back end based on the onboarding document, and then that becomes your NLM on-prem NLM, if you would.
Okay. So we deploy an agent to all of the computers, I'll call them, and then
Correct.
we need to deploy an NLM, which best practice would be its own device then, right?
I'm sorry, say it again?
Best practice, the NLM is its own device. We're not installing software on a server that already exists.
You're either standing up a VM with the ISO or you're getting the appliance from us. It is a standalone endpoint, either physical or virtual. You get the ISO included with your subscription. You have to buy the appliance if you want physical iron.
I just wanted to, I'm just clarifying again, making this the much simpler version. What I'm saying is you're not installing an extra piece of software on their existing, Active Directory domain controller. It's its own device, whether it's virtual or physical, it's its own device.
That's correct.
Okay. So we've got the NLM, and that's going to look at firewalls, access points, smart switches, managed switches, printers, anything else that has SNMP and other smart stuff, right?
Right.
So
it also provides us. I don't mean to cut you off of that part. This has to do with part of this concept of empowering the engineer. It also provides for direct command line access to any layer 2 or 3 device that has that capability.
Okay.
So from within CyberGlass, you can right mouse click, jump into your switch.
Okay. So I'm gonna do the thing that you're probably not supposed to do. I'm gonna name drop a few companies, and it's not because I want you to bash them, okay? I just want to try and understand what are you doing different? What's the value add, or maybe what's their value add? Why would we want to use them instead of you? Okay. Sure. So the first one I'll say is oh darn it, I'm losing it. I lost it.
Okay, you dropped all the names you could.
I dropped all of the names. I had 2 of them on as webinar guests too. See what happens when I don't surf the web and I don't prepare these things and I actually pay attention to you. That's my story. I'm sticking to it, man.
Okay.
All right. So give me a minute and I'll get that. I'll get those questions. But
well, let me talk about PII Guard for a moment. Is that okay?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So PII Guard360, we'll just call it PII Guard for the sake of this discussion, is the sister platform to CyberGlass. Both CyberGlass and PII Guard are standalone platforms, but they were also built to be incestuous, integrate with one another intimately. So when you think about the attack surface, there are actually 3 layers to the attack surface. There are 3 categories that make up the 360 degrees that is the attack surface. The first category we've been talking about for the last 45 minutes, and that's the technological category. In that layer of the attack surface, everybody on this call is intimately familiar with the technological layer of the attack surface. Those are all of the endpoints that make up the attack surface, from web and email all the way down to workstation and everything in between. But there are really 2 other layers to the attack surface that comprise the entire 360 degrees that is the attack surface. One of them we call the cultural layer. And the cultural layer is the organization, the company, or the enterprise itself. How does the company think, feel, and behave when it comes to security? So does the company require people to attest to policies? Do they require people take training? Do they require that people do this, that, or the other thing? The way in which the company behaves relative security is what we call the cultural layer of the attack surface. Because an organization that doesn't care about security is more likely to fall victim than one that does. Make sense?
Yep.
The third layer of the attack surface, the most insecure layer of the attack surface, the one most prone to falling victim, in fact, the number 1 threat to the company, you already know what that is.
The people.
Those are its people. Exactly. And we call that the human layer. So you've got the technological layer, the cultural layer, and the human layer. Those three make up the entire 360-degree attack surface. There's nothing else. And so while CyberGlass managed, monitored, mitigated, and automated the technical layer, we built PII Guard to monitor, manage, and mitigate the human and cultural layers. So the PII Guard platform is all about empowering the enterprise and its people to be more secure. So PIIGuard360.com is the website, and you can see more about that. And you can see both CyberGlass and PII Guard on our CyberGuard website, the company website, CyberGuard360.com. Anyway, PII Guard, exactly, Zach. We are driving a culture of security. You couldn't be more spot on. I talk about this all of the time because an organization's security culture defines how safe and secure it is. The more lax its culture, the less secure it is. The more strict and enforceable its culture, the more secure it is by definition. So PII Guard, we've built into that platform both a live integration with CyberGlass, and that speaks to that cyber risk index score we talked about. But it also is standalone. We do security awareness training. We do simulated phishing. Our policy and procedure manual, which includes over 60 NIST-based policies, security-centric policies, and procedures, it's fully automated. That forces employees to read and attest to those policies. It allows management to update and republish the policies. When they republish an updated policy, everybody who attested to it is automatically set to having no longer attested to it and are notified that the policy has been updated and they must read it. A week later, managers are notified those who didn't read and attest to it. They're notified when their people don't open what we call security shorts, which are these weekly micro trainings that employees get. They have to undergo a security awareness training where they get certification at the end. We have a NIST-based risk assessment that the company can take that follows the NIST framework that includes the identify, protect, detect, all of that. All of this is built into PII Guard so that we are monitoring, managing, and mitigating the cultural and human layers and building a culture of security. And Zach's right. Security is people, process, and technology. Absolutely. That is exactly what I'm talking about, Zach. The three layers that make up a 360-degree security envelope. Our name, CyberGuard360, wasn't an accident. When we started the company, it was all about how do we protect the three layers that make up 360 degrees? How do we guard it? How do we guard it from cyber attacks? Hence, CyberGuard360. That's how the name was born, in fact. It does sound, so I see Zach's comment, and yes, so we built a similar platform. We didn't build it because we wanted to compete. We built it because we wanted a platform that integrated more tightly with CyberGlass, but also a platform that does it in a way that is more intuitive. And what we're adding to our platform is amazing. We're adding some of the things that are on our roadmap for our PII Guard platform for this year are going to blow people away. We're adding personal VPNs. We're adding the ability to manage and monitor encryption keys. We're building keyboard encryption and other elements that are going into PII Guard so that our MSPs can manage them for their clients, but similarly the clients can manage it themselves.
All right, so I've got my list here. I knew I had.
You did it. I knew you could.
and, you know, it's funny. He mentioned Breach Secure Now. That one's on my list, as you'll see. And I swear you had an interesting story about Breach Secure Now.
I did.
You also run an MSP, right?
For the sake of transparency, I do own an MSP. I own CyberGuard360 and I own an MSP. They are separate companies. There's a wall between them. In fact, I am the only person that steps over the wall because I own the companies. Okay.
And I personally think that's okay as long as there is that separation, because, as soon as you start having, if there's an MSP that starts, selling security products and having the MSP's techs providing support to the security product company customers, so something's going to go wrong. Either A, you're going to look out for your own clients with your MSP, or B, the security company clients aren't going to get as good of service and support because all your techs are busy or whatever, So I'm glad that you've got that wall. I'm glad there's the separation. That's important. So I said I wanted to ask you about how you are different from some of these companies, and I just want to clarify this isn't because I want you to dump all over these guys. I just want to know how you're different, and if what you're doing is what you as the MSP owner would consider a complete replacement, or one is better than the other, or if one enhances the other and you need both. All right.
So you want my MSP hat on right now is what you're asking me.
I kind of want your MSP hat on right now.
Sure.
All right. So Avik, they are a network appliance that you put in there, and I believe they call themselves an NMM.
No,
they're like an RMM.
They may be doing that now, yeah.
They, basically they're an RMM, but for hardware, for network hardware.
Kind of. So Avik's a great product, and if I were Leonard Nimoy in search of, and I was looking for an NLM tool, and that's what I wanted, I would probably go with Avik. Great tool. Okay. I don't dispute that. Vigilant, also a good product, and I don't have anything bad to say.
Let me go through that list with you, because the people that watch this later, they're not going to see the list. All right. So,
I see.
and plus,
I forgot all about that. That we're in chat, aren't we?
Questions on the Avik. So what you're saying is, you would still utilize Avik alongside CyberGlass because Avik's doing things that CyberGlass doesn't do.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying if I was an MSP, you asked me about an MSP, right? If I'm an MSP that's currently using CyberGlass.
Yes.
Right now, the only product in your list that I might also use ID Agent.
Okay.
So, and I'm sorry, I realize that the people on who watch this later won't see the list. So one of the items on your list is ID Agent. The reason why right now I would use ID Agent alongside CyberGlass is because what we currently offer in dark web isn't as robust yet as ID Agent. We expect it to be by the end of the year, and then I would just keep using PII Guard.
So Avik and its capabilities today as a network management solution, you're saying that CyberGlass is capable of doing everything that Avik is doing, or enough of the features and functions that you would not also have Avik in your solution stack?
Correct. So I'm pausing a little bit, not because I want to make sure that I'm clear on why I'm saying that. The answer is yes, I wouldn't, but because what CyberGlass is designed to do, which me using CyberGlass, because we built it the way I would want to use it with my MSP hat on, is I don't care about some of the really pretty things that Avik does, and it does it really well, by the way. I don't care about network diagrams and other things like that. That's not relevant to a SOC, frankly.
Okay. Okay.
because a SOC doesn't care about
So you want
the network diagram. What they care about is a flood of traffic on a data when data is being exfiltrated across the third port on a layer 2 switch. That's VLAN routes it out to the firewall, and the firewall says, "Yeah, you're right. I'm headed out this way." That's what I care about, and that's what something like Auvik would tell me. But it's also something that CyberGlass tells me as well.
So on the security side, you're doing everything that Auvik can do. You're missing some features. If I were to say, I want you to do everything Auvik does, but that's because you're not giving me the pretty colors, the reports, the network diagram. Are you? It has user and credential management. I imagine you've got some form of that if we're able to remotely control the command prompt and stuff for these devices.
So that's done through tokenization, and they are instantated, meaning the token is instantated, and then on the termination of the session, the token goes away and is never to be repeated. On the CLI stuff, where you need access to on the scripting and the CLI stuff. So again, the automation requires a degree of scripting. So for instance, and this is also true on the NLM piece, and this would be true for Auvik. So the answer is yes, we do that as well, because you need domain credentials, you need SNMP string credentials. So, and we do all that credential management. That's correct.
Okay, and then they also do like regular backups of the network devices.
Correct. We do that as we provide the ability to do that. We don't do that on an automated basis.
Okay, and do you integrate with a PSA or RMM?
Right now, we're in the middle of developing ConnectWise PSA. It's not done yet, so through email only.
That's fair. Okay, so next on my list is Vigilan. Now, Vigilan is obviously very different from Auvik. Vigilan is basically like a done-for-you SOC. It's outsourcing the whole SOC service. Where, you know, when I initially spoke with you, I was thinking you were doing that because they're providing the stack, but they're also providing the people, is my understanding. But the one thing that I don't know is if it's whose responsibility is it with Vigilan to, for example, tune the product and make sure that it's looking for all of the latest, greatest suspicious things. You know, is that something that their SOC team is doing on the regular, or is that something that we're required to do?
So your question actually is there are two different things, right? So tuning a product is different than staying up on the latest threats.
Okay.
Right. So yes, we both stay up on the latest threats. They'll tune the product. We don't. That we have baseline tuning, but you're going to be tuning things to your own liking. So, for instance, and I'll give you a very simple example. If you do automated backups to a remote site, let's say you have your own data center that you do backups where you do offline or you do online backups too of images that you've taken for servers, and that you do at 2:00 in the morning, and then you have other clients that don't have that. You're not going to be, your threshold for data exfiltration monitoring at the perimeter for the client where you do data backups, you're going to tune that down between 1 and 5 a.m. The one where you don't do it, you're never going to tune it down, because data should never be leaving the perimeter from your client at 2 in the morning that you don't do online backups for. And therefore, you want to have a very high threshold, a very low threshold that says, if you go above 50 bips, I want to know now. Whereas because then you're getting data exfiltration. However, if you do someone doing online backups, you may want to make that 5,000 bips. Okay, boom. Now I want to know because my normative fluctuation in online backups runs at about 4,500. Let's say they go above it by a factor of 10%. So let's say 5,000. If I'm over 5,000, I've also got somebody exfiltrating data, and I want to be alerted. So you can tune to your environment. We're not going to do that for you. In a managed environment, Vigilance, Carver, what Carver's now Continuum, where they really do the work for you, then they'll do a lot of that as they do all of that. But now you're outsourcing labor, and we don't do labor.
Okay.
That's not what we do. We support our product.
Okay. So I don't even know how they exist, if they exist anymore. There's a company called Carver that did a webinar with me a year ago. They got bought out by Continuum.
Correct. Yeah, that's what I was just mentioning. So Carver assembled 3 products. So think about what we talked about early on. Carver took 3 products. They took Sentinel-1, they took Event Tracker, and they took Siren. They didn't rebrand them. Everybody knew what they were using. They said, here's our products that we are going to the MSP would install it, but we will manage, monitor, and remediate for you.
Yes. And from what I was not able to get any clarification on this. This is all hearsay from another MSP, I'm about to say. My understanding was even the SOC of Carver's wasn't Carver's, that a lot of that stuff was being outsourced to Sentinel-1 had like an outsourced SOC service or something like that. So it basically seemed like they were almost just selling an aggregate of services and making money, and good for them. But
they did more than that. I mean, to be fair, they were first line defense. At times they would hand off to the vendor if and when it was necessary. They were definitely first line defense.
Okay. So again, they were doing a service that you are not, just because
that is correct.
Okay.
That's correct. We are in some ways, where we have products included in our subscription, yes, but beyond that, no, not at all.
Now, Alien Vault is interesting because they just got picked up by AT&T a little while ago, and it seems
sorry
as
for
though,
them.
Yeah, it seems as though they're doing a few different things, including their SIM service, and I can't tell if they have an outsourced SOC that they offer, but I see AT&T managed threat detection and response, 24/7 security monitoring from AT&T.
Right. With the acquisition came a SOC.
Okay, so basically, if you were to look at, forget the SOC, just the Alien Vault software itself, is Alien Vault
very similar to CyberGlass?
Okay.
What Alien Vault does, CyberGlass does. So we'll just put it that way.
Okay. And
Alien Vault's a great product if that's what you're looking for. Again, any one of the ones you're saying as a standalone product is a terrific product. Absolutely.
Yeah. And again, I like I said, I didn't want to dump on any one of these guys, but Alien Vault, it's a fantastic product. I've heard some MSPs that have been like, oh, we want to get Alien Vault and we want to start doing managed security stuff, and then they're like, man, I feel like I need to spend like 10 grand and go get certified on Alien Vault just so I can figure out how to use this thing, plus all the fees they're going to spend on buying Alien Vault, so on and so forth. So what you're saying is they don't have to go out and spend a boatload of money on Alien Vault. They can spend a fraction of money with you and get something that also has that machine learning built into it to help them with remediating some of this stuff through the software.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, with my hat on, if I was using CyberGlass, I wouldn't need Alien Vault.
Fair. and then breach secure now. You are literally, no offense to either of you, you guys are literally like direct competitors. And if I were to choose between the two of you, it sounds to me like I might choose your solution only because it's more tightly integrated with one another. But that's my opinion. That's my opinion.
I appreciate the plug. What we do. So yes, pound for pound, we're direct competitors. What our direction for the platform and what we currently do on the platform, we do it much better than they do. I say that as an MSP, not as CyberGuard who developed it. And the backstory on that is, and I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, because I mean, listen, Art built a good company, and I respect him for that. At one time, we were their largest client as the MSP, and I needed some things for Cyberglass, and I wanted to do certain things with the platform, and he went in a different direction. More power to him. We built PII Guard because we were his biggest client because we used it, and we used it as part of our overall solution stack, which made us the single largest security services provider in a dozen verticals in the Northeast, and that's what made us the largest client. So because of that, we needed to build our own because I needed to keep that component of our stack in place. As we went about building it, I then built something that did it the way as an MSP I needed it done. Like I needed my policy and procedure manual to notify people when policies change, notify managers when people didn't attest to them, individually attest, be able to our policy management module in PII Guard is getting an award by a state auditors association.
Okay,
that's how powerful it is. Our security awareness training, redone, brand new for 2019, includes the latest threats as recent as the Capital One breach. Our risk assessment is fully NIST based. These are the things that are different, and why I believe they're better, because we are current and following an industry standard that is relevant. And we have got government departments using it.
Okay.
Because it follows NIST. We have a partner who has a client in the Midwest, a hospital client, that when the hospital client went with another MSP, their single requirement was we have to keep PII Guard. And so we got another MSP partner because they needed to have PII Guard. So
that's impressive. Okay,
anyway,
so then let me talk about this for a second. There was so much there. I'm still digesting.
That's okay.
All right,
wait till next month when we release our personal security package out of PII Guard, because that's going to give the MSP the ability to give the C-suite or anybody they want a mobile security package that they can take with them when they're not on, or for their home devices, for their mobile devices, and the MSP is going to be able to basically create a level of intimacy with their client on a personal level, because we're giving them a personal security envelope.
Now, you mentioned that you have set everything up so that way it's got like the NIST standards.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about that for a second. And we're a few minutes over, and I'm sorry for those of you that are still watching. So I want to answer this well but quickly.
Okay, I'll answer it quickly and then we'll be done. How's that?
Oh no, I've got more questions.
I got a hard stop at 2:30, so go ahead.
Okay. Well, okay, so then quick answers then. All right, so NIST standards. So one of the things that I think would be super great is if you had like a handy chart that said, here are all the NIST standards that they've got laid out, and here is what we're doing to meet all of these standards. And you might not have that today, but I bet that would be really cool for you to give to your MSPs that are partners. Say, hey, you know what? We follow NIST. Here's all the things that we're doing, and here's all the things that you need to be doing. And now you can show this to your clients and tell your clients that they're 100% secure or whatever.
So the problem with that is, and this is actually something we thought about. The problem is the list would be pages and pages long.
Perfect.
Even this cybersecurity framework, the 171, even that framework, because understand that NIST are guidelines and in fact a lot of times generalities,
Yes.
right? So
and I think
a mapping is just difficult.
And the thing with generalities is it's okay that NIST has generalities. If you have something that you're doing that seems as though it is going to successfully complete that generality, like if it just says you should have complex passwords and you've got something on there that's looking to see if anyone doesn't have complex passwords or whatever, then you can let clients know, well, you're not NIST compliant or whatever, like I think that'd be super cool. And maybe that's just me making things simpler than
No, listen, and it may be interesting. The other thing I'll say though, one of the highlights of our platform on our risk assessment, our NIST-based risk assessment, two things about it. One, it generates a POAM, POAM. And in the world of NIST and cybersecurity, a POAM stands for Plan of Action and Milestones. And so we generate a POAM, not POEM, but POAM, right? And so we spit out a POAM and we generate that instantly. So again, another differentiator to our competitor. But when you complete the risk assessment on PII Guard and you click mark as complete, the report and the POAM are generated instantly and available to the MSP. More importantly, when we generate that report, it comes for all of the areas where through the question and answer process, the client was found deficient or lacking. It comes with recommendations for the MSP to make money. So, for instance, if they using yours as an example, that they have, here's a simple one. Their operating systems are not regularly patched. Great. Recommendation. Sell them a managed services agreement for patching. Another one. They don't have complex passwords. Recommendation. Sell them a password management tool such as Dashlane, as this, as that. By the way, we're going to be releasing a password management tool at the end of the year in PII Guard. But leave that alone for a second. Right now, a recommendation that spits out automatically in the POAM is a way for the MSP to make money. So our goal with the platform also was to not just create this work plan, this POAM instantly, because you're never going to want to give it to the client instantly. You're going to want to read it and edit it in case you want to make changes to it. But if you were to give it to them instantly, they wouldn't see why there's value. It's why some of our MSPs partners sell the risk assessment for $10,000.
Wow.
Right? So they get it back instantly, but they wait a week before they show it to them. So where I'm going with this is that we're following the standards and then generating revenue opportunities on top of that from the outcome. And that's also where because when we build, remember I have an MSP hat I put on. So when I was using the competitor's product, I was doing all these recommendations on my own as a way to upsell to the client. And when we started building PII, I said, why don't I just put these recommendations in automatically? And that's what we do. Anyway, sorry, I went off on a tangent.
It's okay. And then I don't feel like we touched on ID Agent very much. Take like 1 minute to talk about why you would recommend somebody still have ID Agent.
So ID Agent has done a great job in they've effectively done sort of with dark web monitoring what we've done with Cyberglass. They took a variety of other companies' tools, and I'm not saying that they're using their tools. I'm simply saying they took what the other tools and they put it into one product. So enterprise monitoring, prospecting, domain monitoring, displaying of the passwords, the ability to decrypt the passwords, the integration with a CRM, and then they built on top of that an awesome marketing arm that says we've got 100 things that you can use and brand yourself to do marketing with. And so they've just done a terrific job in that regard. You could get other dark web tools that will display password information. You can get other dark web tools that will monitor a domain or an enterprise. You can get other tools that have marketing material, if you would. And you can go to a CRM and you can build your own integration with a CRM to automate some of that. Or you can go to ID Agent and get it done, and you're done. So I think it's a great tool. And you know, we have our own dark web. Will it ever be what ID Agent is? No, it won't. We don't intend to compete with ID Agent. We'll show passwords. We'll give our clients the ability to prospect. I know our competitor is doing dark web now, and what they're doing, you know, we understand, and partners want that, and which is why we build things like that ourselves. But I don't intend to compete with ID Agent.
Okay. Well, Al, I really appreciate you hopping on here. Can you stick around for just a couple more minutes? I know you've got your hard stop. So do I, though, at 2:30. For everyone else that is that's here, if you missed any of this, this is going to be available on YouTube later. Al, if you want a copy, I'll be able to get you a copy. And
awesome.
If anybody has any extra questions that maybe we didn't talk about or are interested in signing up, just go to CyberGuard360.com, and Al or one of the people on his team that are not also employees of the MSP, one of his people or Al will take care of you.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for being here, Al. Thank you so much, everybody. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you at the next one.
Thanks, guys.